heart, doing away with negativity is the purpose I intend to pursue as Prime Minister. Do you really think he is pursuing this new way with all his heart?
Look, I think it is entirely legitimate for Labor to do what Tony Abbott refuses to do, and that is to put on the table what Tony Abbott's plans are. I mean, the leader of the Liberal Party wants to be the next Prime Minister without telling Australians what his plans really are. I think it is entirely appropriate for Labor to put on the table the sorts of plans that Tony Abbott refuses to disclose.
But this is
to the
the point.
public.
He hasn't said that he'll make the cuts that you're suggesting in these ads. I agree, he hasn't told us where the money's coming from. He says he will tell us by the end of the election campaign, but you're...
Thank you. At least you can see...
Yes, but you're making assumptions that he's going to make all these cuts that he's never said he'll make.
Well, at least you concede he hasn't told us where the money is coming from. That's a good thing, David. And if he says it's coming from somewhere else, that he's not going to make these cuts, very simple thing he could do. He could put that out to the Australian people. Because I tell you what, I'm not copying, and nor should the Labor Party ever accept a position that says we're supposed to not call out Tony Abbott for the things he refuses to tell the Australian people. It would be an abrogation of our responsibility as the Labor Party, as the Government of Australia, and in terms of the people we represent, who are the people who will be most hard hit should Tony Abbott ever be Prime Minister.
But let me go through your form when it comes to not revealing before an election the sort of cuts that you're going to make. You said nothing before the last election and then went on and cut family payments by $2.5 billion. You raised the threshold of the Medicare safety net. You scrapped the baby bonus. You increased the efficiency dividend a few times on the public service, not to mention hiking the tax on cigarettes, changing salary packaging rules. When it comes to saying or not saying anything before an election and then making cuts, you're the ones with form here.
Oh, come on. I mean, to be honest, that sounds like something Joe Hockey would say, David, and I accept that you want to put it to me so I can respond, but it reads like a Joe Hockey press release.
Well, it's not, Minister, with respect, it's nothing, it's not from Joe Hockey.
Hang on a second. You asked the question, David. You asked the question. You asked the question, let me respond. First, in the last election, we put out our policies and our costings. That's what we did. And many of the decisions that we have had to make as the budget position has got more difficult, we have been upfront about. And we have put that on the public record. We have put out the figures. We have showed Australians, even when it has been politically difficult, the difficult decisions we had to make to ensure the economy stayed strong. What you have now is an opposition that is saying we will fund all these promises. Well, let's just take two policies. $8 billion is the cost to the budget per year and rising of the company tax cut and the paid parental leave scheme, the so-called signature policy. That is more than the Australian government spends each year on childcare. Now, do you reckon Australians deserve some figures and facts about how the opposition would fund that? Instead, what have they got? We've got Joe Hockey on 3AW today, not even knowing how the policy is going to be funded. And we know what that leads to. All roads leads to more cuts for Australian families.
Well, I think most voters would like to see all the costings from both sides. I'm just pointing to some form here and some hypocrisy when it comes to not revealing the cuts that are then made. I mean, the reality is in government, if the situation's worse, you have to make cuts. We've seen that from your government.
That is precisely what Tony Abbott would do were he ever to become Prime Minister.
And it's exactly what you've done,
what he's trying to do, and this... No, I don't accept that. Look, we were very upfront in the last election about our costings, and we have been upfront. We have put out an economic statement which laid out our decisions, and some of those were not easy. And I've been on your show before, David, with you or with your colleagues having to explain those decisions. But what do you have from Tony Abbott and the coalition? You have a continued refusal to put out any costings. I mean, can you imagine the Labor Party putting out $8 billion of expenditure by press release with a couple of sentences on the second page saying, oh, we'll tell you a bit about how we'll fund it, but we'll not actually give you a budget number about how we make this all add up. Can you imagine the Labor Party ever
Well, let me ask you about the promises you are making.
You would rightly criticise me for that,
okay.
And that's precisely what my counterparts
Let me ask you about the promises you are making during this campaign. $50 million million today for Medicare locals, $360 million yesterday for hospitals, another $500 million the day before for the car industry. Where is all of this coming from?
Well, all of the commitments you've just identified have either been provisioned for in the budget and are in the economic statement which was confirmed by the PFO, and I'm happy to sit down with you, David, and take you through those. If there are any further commitments that are not reflected in the numbers where we have funded these commitments in the economic statement, we will lodge our policies and have them costed in accordance with the Charter of Budget Honesty, something that Joe Hockey is refusing to do.
All right, what about one of the big announcements last week from the Prime Minister on developing Northern Australia? Can you just clarify for me what is the plan in relation to cutting the company tax rate for the Northern Territory, and how would you pay for that?
Well, there are a number of aspects, as you might recall, to the Northern Australia plan, and you mentioned one of them. In relation to the company tax benefit, shall we call it, what we made clear, and the Prime Minister made clear in his press conference, as well as in the policy document, is we do have to go through a process of working through how you would deliver that tax benefit, and that would include how you would offset the effective spend, and we laid out a process of discussion and consultation with the Territory, and of course that wouldn't cut in till well after the end of the forward estimates. But notwithstanding that, you'd obviously have to go through an appropriate process.
Okay, but what would you like to see the company tax rate cut to in the Northern Territory?
Oh, look, I mean, I'm not going to preempt those discussions. I think there is obviously a policy benefit to trying to ensure we gain some greater investment in the northern part of Australia.
It's not a gotcha question, though, Minister. I'm just asking if you share the Prime Minister's policy vision on this particular issue.
Oh, look, I think there is benefit in making sure we get the right investment environment for all of Australia, but in particular Northern Australia.
By doing what? By doing what? Cutting the company tax rate? How much?
Position that was put out. Well, that is one of the. Giving a tax benefit is one of the things in the policy that is discussed, and the Prime Minister has laid out a process for that.
Okay, but just to be clear, what would you like to see the company tax rate be?
It was a discussion about, well, I'm not going to be drawn on that. The Prime Minister has indicated what his preference is. We'll go through the process that's been outlined.
But do you agree with him or not?
And I'll tell you the difference between us and the... Oh, come on, David. He's indicated what his preference is, which is a reduction of about a third, and I've said to you we'll go through a process of working through what is the best way to deliver a tax benefit for companies in the Northern Territory. It's not the only aspect of the policy. I know you want to focus on that. There are a number of other aspects. One of them is looking at how you might encourage greater foreign investment for the northern part of Australia. I think that is a very sensible public policy position. But there were a number of aspects of that policy which were announced.
I just don't know why you can't say you share the Prime Minister's view that the company tax rate should be 20%.
We've said we want a tax benefit for for companies which invest in the Northern Territory. Prime Minister's indicated, his preference, and I've said there's a 5-year process, which the Prime Minister has also spoken about, to work out how that is to be delivered and how you'd offset that.
All right, Finance Minister Penny Wong, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We'll catch up again, I'm sure, before the end of the campaign.
Yeah, good to speak with you.
All right, now we are still standing by to hear more from Prime